Hey guys, and welcome to the next exciting installment in Chapter 1. What we've got here is multiplying and dividing, adding and subtracting with significant figures, since we talked about significant figures last time. Now, the easiest one to start with is multiplying and dividing with significant figures, because the rule goes that you'll round whatever your answer is off to the least number, to match the number with the least number of significant figures. So I've got two examples here to show you what I mean. If we go through here and determine the number of significant figures for each one of my problems, I've got 3 significant figures for my 413, 1 significant figure for 2. So when I multiply these guys out, I get 826. Now I'm going to round my answer off to match the number with the least number of significant figures. So the number with the least number of significant figures is 2, which has 1 significant figure, so my answer can only have 1 significant figure. Now the way I do that is I keep the first non-significant figure and round the rest. Now this 2 is less than 5, so I round down. Now what I mean by round down, well, I just round it down to 0, and everything after that is 0. I have to keep those zeros because that's, 8 is very different than 800. Okay, so make sure that you don't put 8 or something crazy like that on a problem like that. The next problem I have here is 312 divided by 2.1. Again, we follow the same procedure. Okay, if we look at 312, it's got 3 significant figures. 2.1 has 2 significant figures. When I put this in the calculator, I get 148.571. That's my calculator answer. Now, what do I round it off? Well, I do exactly what I did the first time. I keep the first 2 significant figures this time. And then I look at what's next. I have an 8 here. Well, that 8 is greater than 5, so I round up. Much like you would hope your grade gets rounded up, right? 69.5 goes to 70. So this goes to 150. Again, this has 2 significant figures. My 800 has 1 significant figure. And it matches right there, right? Matches number with the least number of significant figures. Now the more difficult one is adding and subtracting with significant figures. Adding and subtracting significant figures, the rule is you round your answer off to match the number with the least amount of decimal places. Or, if you prefer, I guess a more correct term would be significant digit places. Now oftentimes what you'll see is adding and subtracting, we line them up based on the decimal place. So in this case I've got 1.00 and 2.4. Now as you can see, if I just add them together, it'll be 3.40. Okay. This 0.4 has the smaller, or 2.4 has the least number of decimal places. So I'm going to draw a line right there. And I'm going to keep everything to the left of this line and then round based on what this number is. This is 0, so I round it down and leave it off. So my actual answer here ends up being 3.4. Now that doesn't seem too bad, and the decimal places will get you by in most cases. However, you can run into some weird stuff like the next issue, or the next problem, where we have 12,000 and 125.4. Now if I put this in the calculator, I get, or hopefully you don't have to put that in the calculator, but I get 12,125.4. Now if I look at this number, my decimal place, my last significant digit, is in the tenths place. So there you go. But my first number, my last significant digit, is in the thousandths place, my thousands place, right there. So that means that it has to match the number with the least significant digit place, or here for the 12,000. So I'm going to have to round my answer off to the thousands place, which if you look, we get 12,000 right back, right? Because this is less than 5, so we round down and have all those zeros. So 12,000. Now that doesn't make sense at first, but think about it. If you have a swimming pool, for example, and you put in a really big swimming pool, and you put in 2,500 gallons, 2,500 gallons in this swimming pool. So you put in, I will say about 25,000 gallons. If you put in 2 drops, it's still about 25,000 gallons, right? And that's what we're saying. This number, 12,000, remember in science, we're dealing with measurements, so this measurement may be 12,000 meters or 12,000 miles. And so it's so rough, it's such a rough measurement that adding a little bit to it doesn't change the estimate, right? Or you can say dollars. Say, I'm going to give you $12,000. Well, if it's 12,125, it's still about $12,000, right? Or 12,000 miles. If you have to go 12,000 miles and it ends up being 12,100 miles, it's still about 12,000 miles, right? That first measurement is so rough that adding a little bit to it doesn't change it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is whenever you're doing both at the same time, addition and subtraction, multiplication and division. One of the things that you can't do is kind of treat them as separate things and round each time. So the rule here is that you follow the order of operations, so things in parentheses, multiplication, division, then addition and subtraction, while you determine the number of significant figures as you go, but you don't round. And in the second problem, I'll show you what I mean. So in this first problem, these are in parentheses, so I do them first. So 7 plus 7 gives me 14. Okay, 14 is 2 significant figures. Now I'm just going to determine how many significant figures I should have, but I'm not going to round it. I multiply by 345, and I get 4,800 and something. But since 14 has 2 significant figures, I'm going to round my answer off to 4,800 to match my 14, not the 7. Okay, so I follow my order of operations without rounding. That's very important that you follow the order of operations, determining the number of significant figures without rounding. The next problem we're going to do kind of highlights what students feel is the weird part of this operation. Now, of course, when I do 2.49 minus 1, I get 1.49. Now, if we were just to kind of extract this little subtraction and move it way over here, I'll show you what I mean. I get 2.49 minus 1, I get 1.49. Now, if this was all we were doing, we would round off to the number with the least number of decimal places, which is 1, which doesn't have any decimal places. So we'd get about 1, right? 4 is less than 5, so we round down, right? So we'd get 1. Now, if we rounded to 1, and then we multiplied by 14.5, we would get 14.5, which would round to one significant figure, which would be 10. But that's wrong. We don't want to do that. We don't want to round. Because if I don't round, and I say this is one significant figure, or should be one significant figure, even though it's 1.49, and I multiply by 14.5, I get 21.6, which, to match my one significant figure from my subtraction, would be 20. Very weird thing. So we do our order of operations, determining the correct number of significant figures as we go, but we only round once. Again, here, if we rounded twice, we get a large error, right? If we do 1.49, round it down to 1, as if this was a problem all in of itself, multiply by 14.5, and then round again, we would get 10, which is way different than 20. So it takes some practice, but that's the general idea. And that's the end of the Numbers 2 video, the second video for Chapter 1, Video 1. In the next video, we're going to look at units. Each of these numbers is comprised of a measurement, right? And so then the important thing to look at next is those measurements and the values that come with them.